11 o'clock.
Hello, everybody. I'd like to welcome you to our first committee of the whole of the 2023. It is February 28th, last day of February, and I'd like to call the meeting to order. It's 4:04. Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Allen,
Allen present. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Bates,
Bates here.
Berman,
Herman's here.
Doherty,
Already here.
Davist, Ford,
Board present.
Gums. Miss Gums. Okay. Iqbal,
Iqbal present.
Juby,
Over here.
Kenyon,
Here.
Caius,
Vice present.
Leonard,
Leonard here.
Lewis, Linder,
Linder here.
Molina,
Molina present.
Roth, Sanchez, Silva,
Silva is here.
Strathman,
Rathman here.
Surges,
Burgess here.
Tarver,
Tarver's here.
Tepe, Williams,
Williams here.
Young,
Young here.
Hirag.
Here.
You have a quorum?
Very good. Thank you all. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. Mark, why don't you do us the honor and give the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now, before we begin, and we will get through the approval of the minutes, I'd like to ask this committee's liberty. We'll have to go into executive session briefly. And excuse me, gentlemen, I'll have to ask you to, and ladies, to leave. We have some minutes that we have to approve. So I'd like to get that done first before we do the presentations. May I please have a motion and a second to go into executive session?
Second.
And this is for the purpose of
Review of closed session minutes?
a review of closed session minutes. Thank you. So we have a motion and a second. Clerk, please call the roll.
Allen,
Aye.
Bates,
Bates, yes.
Berman,
Herman, yes.
B,
Already yes.
Ford,
Board yes.
Gums, Iqbal,
Iqbal present.
Juby,
Over here.
Kenyon, Caius,
Vice present.
Leonard. Linder,
Linder present.
Molina,
Molina, yes.
Silva,
Silva present.
Strathman,
Rathman present.
Surges,
Burgess here.
Tarver,
Tarver here.
Williams,
Williams here.
Young.
Young here.
Here.
All right, going into executive session.
Okay, everybody online, please accept the invite to go into closed session. I'll let you know when we're there. Otherwise, until then, we are still live streaming, so be aware of that. We're waiting for a couple of people still to join. Please accept your invites. Still missing one person. Okay, you are in open session.
We are back in open session. Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Allen,
Allen present.
Bates,
Bates here.
Berman,
Berman's here.
Doherty,
Yes.
Davist, Ford, Gums,
Gums here.
Iqbal,
Iqbal present.
Juby,
Ruby here.
Kenyon, Caius,
Highest present.
Leonard,
Leonard here.
Lewis, Linder,
Linder here.
Molina,
Molina present.
Roth, Sanchez, Silva,
Silva is here.
Strathman,
Strathman here.
Burgess,
Burgess here.
Carver,
Tarver here.
Tepe, Williams,
Williams here.
Young,
Young here.
Parag.
Here.
You have quorum?
May I have a motion and a second to approve Exhibit A?
Madam Chair,
Allen moves.
Caius would move that we move that we release the minutes as in Exhibit A. Very good. Kenyon would second that.
Thank you, Mr. Kenyon. There's no, clerk, please call the roll.
Allen,
Allen,
Bates,
Bates, aye.
Berman,
Berman, yes.
Doherty,
Yes.
Ford, Gums,
Gums, yes.
Iqbal,
Iqbal, yes.
Juby,
Ruby, yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Caius,
Caius, yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Linder,
Yes.
Molina,
Molina, yes.
Silva,
Silva, yes.
Strathman,
Strathman, yes.
Sturgis,
Burgess, yes.
Carver,
Tarver, yes.
Williams,
Williams, yes.
Young,
Young, yes.
Parag.
Yes. All right. Very good. All right. Now, may I have a motion and a second to approve the minutes of August 30th, 2022 and September 15th, 2022?
Would move that motion.
Thank you, sir.
Berman second.
Thank you, Mr. Berman. Any edits? Comments on those minutes? Seeing and hearing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Allen,
Allen, aye.
Bates,
Bates, aye.
Berman,
Berman, yes.
Doherty,
Yes.
Ford,
Ford, yes.
Gums,
Gums, yes.
Iqbal,
Iqbal, yes.
Juby,
Abstain.
abstain, Kenyon, Caius,
Caius, yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Linder,
Linder, abstain.
Molina,
Molina, yes.
Silva,
Silva, yes.
Strathman,
Strathman, yes.
Sturgis,
Burgess, yes.
Carver,
Tarver, abstain.
Williams,
Williams, yes.
Young,
Young, yes.
Parag.
Yes. All right. Is there any public comment? I see no one and no one online. With no public comment, I'd like to turn this presentation off to our Development Director, Mark Van Kerkhoff. And thank you, Mark, for putting all of this together.
You're very welcome. Good afternoon, and I'll let her put our PowerPoint up. We're very grateful for this opportunity this afternoon to update the full county board on two very important economic development initiatives that staff has been working on with a lot of partners locally and in the region. Most of this has been reported over the last 2-3 years to the Jobs Committee. But there's two critical pathways now for both these initiatives, and they're both converging very beautifully. I'm also very grateful for this group behind me that you're going to be hearing from as well as they're available to answer questions at the end of this. So I'm going to kick it off and tee it up for the rest of the group here, but give you a roadmap of where we're going. I'm going to give you a brief, just an introduction, overview of what Kane County sees as the need for countywide and regional economic development. Chris Toth, one of our planners, is going to talk about our economic development strategic plan that we're about to undertake using state funds. We have a couple of our local partners who are going to talk about the need and support for economic development in Kane County. And then very grateful to have two of our key, a number of our key people with the Greater Chicagoland Economic Partnership. to talk a little bit and answer questions you might have in terms of what value that brings to Kane County and our economic climate
And Mark,
here.
could you get a little closer to the?
Oh,
mic?
sure.
Everyone has that problem with that microphone.
I even told them all they had this problem. So I also want to especially thank Carol Geisky with the Elgin Chamber of Commerce and Austin Edwards for joining us. Also, CMAP was a key player, especially in recovery from the pandemic, of assembling a lot of partners and undertaking a study that led to this regional partnership. So first, just a quick overview. Why countywide economic development? Kane County is the only large collar county in the region and one of the few large counties in a tri-state area, or actually quad state area. If you look at the map, 100-mile radius, it does not have what's known as an economic development organization. And those organizations are typically public-private partnerships that help promote and do coordination, attraction, retention for businesses, bring forth some of the bigger issues and needs for an economy to really be successful in competing and being sustainable. Comprehensive economic development and marketing strategy is needed for Kane County to compete now and in the future for high-paying jobs and maintain sustainable economy. So all the counties in green on this map within 100-mile radius have economic development organizations that are doing the work on behalf of their municipalities and businesses within their county. So what do we have in Kane County? We have 30 municipalities, 4 of which have economic, or 5 of them which have economic development organizations: Elgin, South Elgin, Sugar Grove, Montgomery, and Aurora. The rest of our municipalities maybe have on their municipal staff a staff member who's assigned economic development, kind of like Chris and I are for the county. But by and large, a lot of them don't have any staff or support for really working on economic development issues. There are a lot of chambers in the county, chambers of commerce. A lot of them focus on local business development as opposed to attracting businesses from outside the region. So the other new thing you're going to hear about this afternoon is the Greater Chicagoland Economic Partnership. This is combining a 7-county region in the city of Chicago. You're going to hear more about that, but generally the partners will coordinate competitive global identity, optimize resources for international engagement, cooperate in attraction and retention, market research, and asset mapping to have a greater efficiency and scale. And one of the reasons this is significant for Kane County and considering launching our own economic development organization is those are all activities that an EDO would typically need to have hire staff and to do in-house. And the region, which is comprised of counties and economic development organizations, see this as the most efficient way to really go after those global and international market and competitive marketing and issues. So in summary, countywide economic development plus regional economic partnerships will have high impacts with maximum efficiencies. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Chris Toth.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me today. I'm usually speaking on the other side, but my name is Chris Toth. I'm a planner with Community Development Services. I've been working here for 8 years, and I'm so excited to talk about things that we are doing here in Kane County. First thing I want to talk about for our schedule and funding is the ARPA projects. The Community and Development Services Department submitted 5 projects for the ARPA program. For economic recovery and sustainability. And those programs are the Fabulous Fox Water Trail Promotion and Infrastructure Fund, the Economic Development Strategy and Organization for Kane County, Kane County Agricultural Recovery and Sustainability Fund, Kane County Manufacturing Recovery and Sustainability Fund, and the Kane County Tourism Recovery and Promotion for Sustainable Future Fund. Back in May, the staff submitted an application for $150,000 for the Illinois DCO RISE Economic Development Planning Grant. That was something we worked really hard on. I was really excited to get that in. I had a kid born right after we submitted it, so it's been just a whirlwind of a year. But in August of 2022, the ARPA team conducted their risk assessment. And then in August, we also had the regional leaders commit to support the Greater Chicagoland Economic Partnership, or GSEP. September, we got the wonderful news that we were awarded the full $150,000 for the DCO RISE grant. And then in November of 2022, the county board resolution was passed supporting the GSEP for up to $300,000 over 3 years. In January of 2023, the GSEP officially launched. And in 2023, moving forward, we're looking to retain a consultant for a countywide economic development strategic plan using the DCEO grant, as well as use those recommendations to launch an economic development organization for Kane County. As part of our economic development strategic plan, we want to make sure we achieve the following 5 objectives: economic framing, inclusive growth, key drivers of growth, exploring the next economy and new approaches to economic growth, both to help the county recover from the COVID-19 impacts and position it for sustained, inclusive future growth. We're also looking for an overview and market analysis, including economic history, assets, overall economic performance, industry and economic clusters, workforce, innovation, entrepreneurship, governance, and relationship to the regional economy. We're also looking for a preliminary and transformative strategies delineating a vision for sustainable inclusive growth in Kane County. We're looking for recommendations for an additional deeper dive studies of significant and emerging economic sectors such as agriculture, tourism, and manufacturing, and/or other recommended initiatives. We're also seeking recommendations for the formation and launch of a public-private partnership economic development organization for Kane County. Like Mark showed on the map earlier, we are at a competitive disadvantage because everyone else in the region has their own economic development organization. So we're on the pathway to making that happen. And with that, I'd like to hand it over to Tony Lysenko, Director of the Elgin Development Group.
Madam Chairwoman, members of the King County Council, thank you very much, along with the staff, for inviting us here to show the need and the support we have in Elgin for a countywide organization. We're a little bit unique in King County, a little bit unique in economic development because our organization is actually housed out of the Chamber of Commerce. Historically, that's been the way it's worked in Elgin, and it's been an advantage for us because we can have a lot of meetings and discussions privately and eventually go to the city council, which actually does fund us. We're a private-public partnership that's funded almost entirely by the city council, along with donations from the private sector. We also work a lot with your organizations. We have a number of different committees. We have a workforce committee. We have a transportation and infrastructure committee in our economic development program. We have a business retention and attraction committee. We also, because we know most of the growth that happens within our community happens from existing businesses, we do everything we can to support small businesses. And so I'm here to talk about what we do on a local level, and Kyle and Greg are here to talk a little bit later on about what it means to work on a regional level. But the partnerships that we establish, we are not an island unto ourselves. We are we work with a lot of different organizations throughout the region, and we're forced to because, you know, that's the way the economy is, and that's the way we work. We also work closely with a lot of, I got to get closer. Okay. I thought it was good. Okay. So we also work a lot. Sorry about that. We also work with King County quite considerably. Your Department of Transportation, Tom Rickert sits on one of our committees. Mark and Chris have been valuable assets when we have questions regarding some economic development metrics. We also work closely with your King County Workforce Division. We have people from the county already on a number of our committees. And so these initiatives that were discussed earlier by Chris are some of the things that we already do. And the standard of living, the quality of life, bringing new jobs, new tax revenue, which has been very important to the city of Elgin as one of our part of our contract is some of the things I hope that you can benefit from by having a centralized economic development organization in King County. Like was mentioned by Chris earlier, we're behind the 8 ball we're the only county left with no economic development organization on the county level. And we could use your help up in Elgin. I'm sure and Loretta will speak to Aurora, but we need to get organized, and we're doing everything we can in Elgin, and we're pushing out the envelope, and we're growing. We had millions of square feet in the last couple of years of new industrial growth. Our vacancy rates are at all-time lows. And, like I said earlier, we're not an island. We have 60,000 people in our workforce. And of those 60,000, 50,000 go elsewhere to work, and only 10,000 live and work in Elgin. We have people coming from places like Chicago, which is the largest population of people who come to work in Elgin. We have people coming from Vancouver, Canada, who work during the week and go back. We have people from Berkeley, California that come in during the week and work and then go back home. So just to give you an example of the fact that we need to do whatever we can to work together and create a strategic plan with priorities that we can all together on a regional basis, not just a county-wide basis, go to work on. So I want to thank you for the opportunity to say a few words. I want to keep respect everybody's time. And so I thank you very much. And I'll hand it over at this time to Loretta with Invest Aurora.
Really have to lower it now. Is this working?
Very good.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me this afternoon. And Mark, thank you for inviting me. I can't really explain in enough detail how important I feel regional planning is. As Tony was saying, we're not an island. While Aurora is 44 square miles wide, it needs the region in order to really thrive. So seeing Kane County step to the plate and wanting to create an economic development organization for the entire county, I think is a more than a step in the right direction. And it's something that we certainly in Aurora would support wholeheartedly. We have a need for knowledge. And anytime that we can create a greater knowledge pool, we are able to more effectively go out and really solicit new and exciting businesses. I can't tell you the number of times that we sat there and said, okay, where can I get my hands on that kind of information? Choose DuPage does incredible work with that kind of scenario. And creating that for Kane County is just going to, for Aurora, complete it. We're in 4 counties. The majority of our economic development happens within Kane and DuPage. So to have an entity on the scale of a Choose DuPage is just going to be great for Aurora, but really great for the region. I can also tell you that just within Aurora, again, at 44 square miles, I believe we're losing opportunities. We get solicitations from Intersect Illinois all the time, and we're running out of space. But that doesn't mean that I don't want that entity in our region. What's good for the region is good for Invest. So having an organization that allows us to plan as a region will help us to make sure that we are grabbing every opportunity that we can to bring it, if not to Aurora, then to Batavia or to Elgin or somewhere else. This is, I think, an opportunity for us to really move in the right direction and move forward together. I think another area that I'd like to stress where I think it's incredibly important for this type of organization and this type of planning is that economic development is changing. It always has, it always will, but it's really changing right now. COVID changed a lot of sensibilities. In Aurora, we have a lot of manufacturing. That's changing rapidly as we speak. So again, being able to pool our resources to identify issues that are coming up regionally from a county to state to a national level, I think is really important. It helps us all to work together. And I know it sometimes feels like there's one on top of the other on top of the other, but I can guarantee you with the right people in the room, and I think that Mark and Chris have gotten that, we can really make a great impact working together. So I'd like to say that Aurora wholeheartedly supports this, and we're looking forward to working very closely together in the future. Sorry, I forgot to tee up.
How does this sound? Oh, there we go. I'll hold it. Madam Chair, members of the board, good afternoon. As Mark said, my name is Kyle Schultz. I am the Executive Vice President at World Business Chicago, and it is my honor to be here this afternoon with each of you. Let me first start off by saying thank you to Mark and Chris for the invitation and for all of you from getting me out of the Chicago election bubble. It's incredibly nice of you all to get me out of that chaos.
You're welcome. Stay a while.
Oh, I'm planning on it. And with that, Madam Chair, I would like to say, as we talk about the regional partnership, this isn't just a professional initiative for me, but this is personal. I grew up 7 miles away from Kane County in Sycamore, Illinois. I spent most of my youth going to Geneva, shopping at Geneva Commons, trying to flirt with Kane County girls. So having a regional partnership, and while I live in Chicago now, I understand the benefits and value of how working together impacts all of us. My colleague Greg from Choose DuPage and I will be tag teaming this presentation. But as we look at Chicago, at a World Business Chicago perspective, and those who you don't know, World Business Chicago was incorporated 23 years ago at the request of Mayor Daley at the time to promote Chicago in 3 pillars: support business, attract new investment and jobs, and promote Chicago as a global city. The anecdote that is shared amongst legacy staffers is that Mayor Daley got tired of traveling the world and only hearing about Chicago, about Michael Jordan and the Chicago Bulls. He wanted something to push back on that, and World Business Chicago was created. As a result, our chair became the mayor of Chicago, regardless if it was Mayor Daley, Mayor Emanuel, or now Mayor Lightfoot. And with that, we've had a very centric focus on what's good for the city of Chicago and not what's good for all of Chicago land. But as we talk, and as my business development team talks, we talk about Chicago as a region. And that includes our massive economy that you see on the board, our diversity. My team, our #1 talking point is that Chicagoland boasts the most diverse economy of any major US metro, with no more than one sector taking up 14% of our total GDP.
That's wonderful. That's outstanding.
And then we also talk about our targeted sectors, which we identified in the spring of 2020 as life sciences and healthcare, transportation and logistics, manufacturing, food manufacturing, finance, and professional services. Not in the terms of what that growth means for Chicago, but what that growth in those jobs are for Chicagoland. So we naturally come to the opportunity to talk about the greater Chicagoland economic partnership from a lens of regionalism, though we hadn't publicly admitted it before. And I'll take this chance to pause and introduce Greg. And do you want to do this section? I'm going to get
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Greg Bedlove. I'm the president and CEO of Choose DuPage. We are the public-private partnership arm of DuPage County, focused on economic development for DuPage and now for the entire region. And I too want to thank you for entertaining our presentation today. And I specifically want to thank Mark and Chris. You have a dedicated team here that has been a pleasure to work with, and chair as well, to try to advance this initiative. To be fair, this slide doesn't go back far enough, in my humble opinion. I have been in economic development at the county level in DuPage for going on 10 years now. And for 10 years, I have been saying a strong Chicago is a strong DuPage County, and a strong Chicago is a strong Kane County, and a strong Chicago is a strong Cook County, and on and on and on. I have additionally been saying that a strong DuPage and a strong Kane is the best thing in the world for a strong city of Chicago, because this is truly an ecosystem, and this is truly a spider web of connectivity for economic development opportunities. But the pandemic hit, and we used the pandemic in conjunction with Mayor Lightfoot, President Preckwinkle, and DuPage County Board Chair Dan Cronin, along with our friends at the Chicago Metropolitan Agency for Planning, Austin Edwards, Aaron Ailman, and their team, to put together an economic recovery task force. And I don't want to bore you with all the details on it. It happened a couple of years ago. Here's the message from CMAP, who's heard me say this a million times. Of all the regions significant in size in the United States, Chicago was the slowest to recover post-pandemic and punched below its weight for longer than any other region. And one of the primary reasons for that was because we work in silos from an economic development perspective. And the creation of the Greater Chicagoland Economic Partnership is designed, quite frankly, to tear down those silos. So we went through a process. We engaged Brookings. We engaged a lot of really smart people because that's what you try to do when you're trying to solve these problems. And we came up with a model of the 7 collar counties along with the city of Chicago working collaboratively on economic development efforts. I can assure all of you that while we're super excited about this and that while we are absolutely convinced that this will be a model for success, we're not the first people to do it. 90 miles to our north exists the Milwaukee 7, which is a 7-county collaborative, including the city of Milwaukee, to promote their region. The Greater Phoenix Economic Development Corporation represents many counties throughout the Phoenix area: Denver, San Diego, Houston. I can go on and on. But as we go through this timeline, you see that many meetings were had between county board chairs, economic development people, a lot of recommendations on the best way to move forward, and the Greater Chicagoland Economic Partnership was created. And by the way, I think Kyle and I would both be happy to mention that if any of you have any questions along the way, please feel free to stop us. We created a regional statement of economic cooperation. And believe me, for anybody who's been involved in economic development in the Chicagoland region, this alone is huge. Kyle and I agree, and I believe all of our other economic partners agree, that an economic development win by taking a piece of business, heaven forbid, from Kane County and moving it to Chicago or DuPage to Kane, that is not an economic development win. If incentive dollars are involved, it's an economic development loss because nobody buys a new car, nobody purchases a new house. So there needs to be investment. There needs to be organic growth. I'm not going to read the statement to you, but it assures that we as economic development people will focus on things like foreign direct investment, like investment from outside the region, like gaining on economies of scale. DuPage County is the 2nd largest county in the state of Illinois. I've never attended an international trade show to try to lure business from Germany or China or Mexico or Canada because my budget simply doesn't afford it. Kyle, you guys do trade shows. We now, through this partnership, can all work collaboratively on a regional trade show to pick up on those economies of scale to promote real foreign direct investment throughout the area. I don't know if I just went backwards or forwards. I'm going to keep going.
There you go. Backwards.
Oh, we'll figure this out. Sorry. So what are other regions doing? We talked about that. These are some examples of what some of the other Tampa Bay, Phoenix, Houston. The model is nearly identical. And I think it's worthwhile to, at this point, to also mention that one of the reasons that these regions are going this way is because of the partnership and the involvement from the business community. You are getting a pretty much 1-for-1, or in some cases greater return on your investment right off the bat, because believe it or not, my board, many other public-private partnership boards who are involved with economic development organizations actually write a check to sit on the board. Full disclosures, conflict of interest, everything is on the up and up, but they recognize that a rising tide floats all boats, and they want to make the investment so that it can help the region grow. I think I'm going to turn it back over to Kyle now to go over what this partnership would look like from a structural perspective.
Thank you, Greg. I would like to add just here with the benchmarking, I come to this partnership with a very unique perspective. While I am fully a West suburb boy who is proud of my roots out here in the Kane and DeKalb County area, I started my economic development career in Austin, Texas, who boast that they were the original inventor of regional economic development. I was there for 6 years, returned to Chicagoland and went to Schaumburg to find out that World Business Chicago did not operate as a regional big brother, sharing leads across the region. So when I joined World Business Chicago, it was a priority for me to make sure that this organization that had the notoriety around the world started functioning much more in a value add for the entire region. And so one of the things we've identified as we've gone through this process is that we did not need to create a separate economic development agency, that there was already enough confusion as into what World Business Chicago's actual role would be. Most real estate brokers, consultants, and international companies believe we serve all of Chicagoland and get confused when I used to say my services stop at the city limits. So what the structure of the Greater Chicagoland Economic Partnership will be is an advisory board that brings together through the City of Chicago, World Business Chicago, through Will County, the Will County CED, the McHenry County EDC representing McHenry, Lake County Partners, Kendall County, Mark and Chris, Choose DuPage for DuPage, and then Cook County into a 16-member advisory board with the current anchor project being a regional business development role. The parties have all agreed to tap into World Business Chicago as the project sponsor for this work, leveraging our expertise, our networks, our scale in terms of service, subscriptions, and resources to launch this. But what makes this partnership truly unique is that it gives us the ability to be nimble and add other projects and initiatives as we deem necessary for our regional growth. And so what World Business Chicago brought to the table as we discussed this was 4 key areas that we thought would best serve this region. The first one was research, concierge services, and RFI response. As we went through in partnership with CMAPS and Brookings, we identified that World Business Chicago had the most robust subscription of data services of any of the partners, that this was truly an asset that could be shared, that this data often stops at a regional level. So my research team, which is 4 members, is available for Mark and Chris, any local municipality, any business, to help them make good, informed, data-driven decisions about market growth and competition. The second piece, to what Greg said, is a regional sector asset map. We have far and too long talked about the different pieces of this region without having a unified brand in what happens. So when we talk, we don't know what assets exist out in Kane County that could help us win an electric vehicle manufacturer. We don't know what assets exist in Will County that could help us win a major logistics opportunity. So the second piece that my team will be working on is a regional asset map that'll show companies, consultants, what are the incredible advantages that this area offers. The third piece, my personal favorite, because this is the team that I oversee, is leveraging the robust international relationship that World Business Chicago has. Chicagoland is home to 83 consul generals, honorary consuls, and trade commissioners that World Business Chicago has the honor of representing the city interest for them. We are going to leverage those relationships and start promoting Chicagoland globally to drive foreign direct investment. And then finally, you can only attract so much. You have to grow and cultivate your own economy. So the fourth element will be expanding the programmatic efforts that World Business Chicago does for innovation and entrepreneurship across the region. And as Mark said, this project officially kicked off on January 4th. And in those preceding few weeks, we've already off to a fast start. World Business Chicago has shared 13 economic development opportunities with our regional partnership. I think Greg and I were talking before, that kind of activity has never happened. It used to be a one-off here and there. We are now intentionally making sure that our partners, including Mark and Chris, are on part of every opportunity. We have identified 3 pro-Chicago land decisions. A pro-Chicago land decision is a Mayor Lightfoot terminology that recognizes any company that made a significant expansion of their Chicagoland location or opened a new facility. And so one of the first that we were able as a partnership to celebrate was Raputa Robotics, this Japanese manufacturer of robotic technology that helps make logistics operations run more effectively and efficiently, brought their US headquarters to Schaumburg, Illinois in late January. And the other that I'm proud to say that we're working with Mark on is MAI Fulfillment, which leased 247,000 square feet in Elgin. The other big thing that we get a lot of opportunity that we have not shared before is on the networking events, engagement pieces that come from being World Business Chicago. So as we look back in late or earlier this month, we were invited to participate in the White House's AANHPI, the Asian American Native Hawaiian Pacific Islander Summit that they hosted with the US Secretary of Commerce here in Chicago. That invite used to just fall solely in World Business Chicago. But under this partnership, we wanted to make sure that all of our regional partners and any business that they had that identified as an AANHPI were able to participate. Tomorrow, Chair, we're excited to have you join us. We will be celebrating the 2022 Pro Chicagoland decisions, recognizing all the incredible investment that happened across our great metropolitan area last year. And then finally, next Monday and Tuesday, WBC will be leading a delegation of our GSEP partners down to the University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign, to participate in the Ag Tech Summit. WBC is the official lead sponsor for this. And through that, we're able to secure tickets for our partners who wanted to participate. The other element that we continue to do is provide connections to local startups that are receiving venture capital that are in Kane County. An interesting fact is when we think about innovation and venture capital and growth money coming into our area, 35% of that money flows outside of the city of Chicago. It ends up in Kane County, in Will County. And so we are being much more intentional in making sure that fast growing startups who are going to call Kane County their headquarters have the access to the programs and resources that World Business Chicago provides moving forward. And so finally, as you guys prepare, I understand this is a March discussion, the cost allocation. So World Business Chicago is expanding our services, adding staff to make sure that we are able to support this brand new initiative. And thanks to CMAP and Brookings, there was developed a blended rate for the cost based on population and GDP. And so Kane County's total cost allocation is just 5.5% of the total budget based on the regional population and regional employment. Mark, is this back to you? Right.
Sure. So going through the committee schedule currently is a resolution authorizing the Kane County Board Chairman, Madam Chairman, to sign the term sheet agreement, which has just recently been finalized and reviewed by State's Attorney and all of our other partners. And then for our first year payment of the $54,703. Initially, that is going to be paid out of our Economic Development Fund, Fund 400, which comes from Grand Victoria Riverboat Funds for economic development purposes. But we are working closely with our ARPA team in order to have that reimbursed back to Fund 400 to determine that anything that's ARPA eligible. So with that, I think we're on to questions and discussions. I know you've heard a lot, but you have a lot of very smart people here to help answer any questions that you have.
Are there any questions? Yes, sir.
Well, this is Caius from District 23 up in Algonquin. This is a very exciting program. It's wonderful to see that we're all coming together and going forward into the 21st century here like we should be together, because we all live together or pass together as an economy around here. Is there any aspect to this that deals with the livability of the counties and the Collier counties in the city? I know that that's one of the things that brings people to our county is that the livability, the environment, and of course, I'm president of the Forest Reserve too, so I've been really excited about that, presenting that kind of thing. But is there anything that is part of this, subcommittee or that takes into the aspects of just exactly how, when we bring new business and bring new workers here, that we provide them with an environment where they can raise their families and have the good community to live with?
Sure. Yeah, we anticipate that'd be part of that asset mapping as well as that marketing and global identity. A number of years ago, we had a delegation of business owners from France, but they were not Parisian French. They were French from towns like we have and communities like we have in Kane County, and they were not interested in being in the big city of Chicago. But they fell in love with Aurora and the Fox Valley. So in order to have World Business Chicago is there, doing that global engagement, having, sharing what is available in the Chicagoland region, that will be much more attractive to those types of business owners than who aren't necessarily automatically attracted to the Chicago Loop or particular areas. So that'll be a big advantage to us. Otherwise, they have no way of, there's no marketing countywide or in the region to show, what is available in the region. They may like the idea of being in Chicagoland, but their particular workforce, their particular international identity. We have some clusters of German and Japanese companies already in Kane County, but how would they know that without, that bigger outreach? But that's a great question. And certainly that is one of our strongest assets here is our quality of life and scenic building and bike trails and everything. So.
Yeah. Actually, I should have led with my first three questions, which were, did you vote before you left the city or do you live in the city?
I do live in the city and I did vote with my daughter this morning.
All right, good for you. And then how did you do on flirting with girls here in this county? Did you get one or did you have to go someplace?
You can clearly see by my build, I am an offensive lineman who as a awkward teenager did not know how to talk to girls. So not very well is the honest answer to that second question.
Okay. And third is, I apologize for my ignorance, but you had mentioned the term, I hate acronyms, RFI.
Yeah,
which is
that's
what?
In the economic development world, RFI is request for information.
Okay.
We often get that from companies, consultants, brokers looking for just an initial data overview about what makes Chicagoland, a piece of real estate, qualify for whatever the project looks like. It's the initial entry point into a lot of economic development opportunities. Once qualified, then we get to roll out the ecosystem. I think, and then to your first question, if I could add to Mark, one of the things that World Business Chicago developed during the Amazon HQ2 pursuit was a neighborhood profile based on livability, based on stage of life. So if you were in my stage of life with a young family, you'd want to live in these neighborhoods of the city. We intend to replicate that, as Mark said, with the asset map so that my team is able to better know what is the quality of life in King County and be able to have that in front of companies as they look to make these pro Chicagoland decisions.
Excellent,
Thank
excellent.
you.
Thank you. Mr. Young, we've got one question ahead of you and then it'll be your turn. Yes, Mr. Berman.
Oh, I was going to say, it's exciting to hear this. It's not going to do away with the competition between communities on incentives that are offered to different opportunities. But I think it's great to bring those opportunities to everyone to look at.
If I could add to that too, just to make sure we level set expectations, it certainly is not going to stop Kane County from trying to close a piece of business where that piece of business came to Kane County and said, we want to be in Kane County.
Right.
What it is intended to do is to have Kane County, and if you eventually move forward with an independent EDO or DuPage County, it's going to prevent DuPage County or the city of Chicago, not that Kyle would ever do this, but some people back in the day in Chicago used to come to DuPage County McDonald's and say, hey, move to Chicago. If McDonald's wants to move to Chicago and they approach Chicago and they want to do that, it's still America. They can still do that.
Right.
The idea is the poaching is a thing of the past. And even further, the enhanced communication of, hey, Kane County, you got a business that's calling us. We'd rather figure out a way to have them grow. And we'd certainly like to share the challenges that they're having with you so that you can address it on a local level. But yeah, there's still going to be that level of competition.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Mr. Young.
Yes, this is David Young. I was just reading, well, it's not reading, but it's been a fact that a lot of companies have exited and left Illinois. And there's just this stigma with Illinois about it's not a very friendly business climate. So you have a lot of companies moving out. I mean, just recently, like Citadel, and you have Caterpillar and Boeing and Tyson, just to name a few off the top of my head. How are we going to battle against that and try to draw more and more companies toward this area? Just in general, Illinois in general. I know Kane County is a special place for all of us, but just we need to, make sure that people are happy with coming and looking at Illinois as a state to move their company to.
Very good question, Mr. Young. Thank you for asking that. I think I would start by acknowledging that there is nuance to those decisions. Boeing left Chicago because they needed to be closer to their funding source, the DoD, and there wasn't a lot of benefit to be in Chicago anymore. Tyson wanted to consolidate offices and cut down on overhead and thought that they could get their people to move to Arkansas. They are currently struggling trying to replace those jobs in Arkansas because the Chicagoans won't move. And then if you look at the totality of what happened last year, yes, we lost 4 brands that people know. Those job numbers, though, when you factor in that Boeing only took away 250 people, Tyson took away 150 people, I'll be generous, out of their Chicago office. CAT took another 200. Those numbers were dwarfed when you add in Google doubling down on their Chicagoland presence by buying the Thompson Center, Mars Wrigley doing a worldwide search and building their largest global innovation center here. So I think the first part in how do we stem that tide is we all need to be our biggest cheerleaders and tell our stories, help elevate on our own platforms why Chicagoland is a great place to do business. I don't hear rejection about Chicago when I talk with companies. There is not a doom and gloom if you're outside Chicagoland. Every major market, whether it's domestic and international, struggles with crime and safety. They've got rampant homeless issues that we don't have at the level. They have transportation and mobility concerns. We are a connected region. We have a highly educated, well-motivated, well-trained workforce with a diverse economy that allows a business, regardless of what their sector is, to have multiple markets to grow right from here. And so I see a lot of opportunity, and that's backed up by, in 2021, we had 173 pro-Chicagoland decisions, and last year we had 180 pro-Chicagoland decisions. The companies that are coming, those job numbers continue to surpass and exceed the companies that we're losing. So I think we're in a really strong economy. It's on all of us in this room, though, to do a better job of telling what makes us special and celebrate the companies like we're doing tomorrow morning that make these decisions to come here and elevate them up, because our competitors sure do.
That was an excellent answer. Thank you.
I don't know that I can add anything to it other than we all know that newspapers buy ink by the barrel. So that's a big component of it. And I'm not denying the reality of some of the challenges. But I would also submit that perhaps that's even more reason, if there is a modicum of truth to what you're reading, that's even more reason to do this. Because now when 7 counties in the city of Chicago speak with one voice, although to be clear, it is not currently contemplated to have kind of a governmental representation within this group, or a PAC or a advocacy group. But let's be honest, we have 7 economic development organizations plus the city of Chicago coming together. Springfield, I would imagine, would listen a lot more attentively to all 8 of us as opposed to any one of us.
Okay, very good. Ms. Juby?
Okay, so, sorry. So this morning, we were given a resolution, which we postponed that. So I think, Mark, I think you're going to be the one that I'm going to have to ask these questions to, because I don't think they're familiar with the resolution that we had. So there were 4 performance measures that were listed in there, 500 leads, 150 pro region decisions, 3 engagements per year, 7 opportunities per year. So what exactly is a pro region decision?
Okay, I will defer to Kyle on that, but I think what you're referring to is the term sheet agreement that
Yes.
was
that
developed and it's being signed by all 7 counties in the city of Chicago.
Right.
And one thing that was important to everyone as we created this was that there be some performance measures and metrics. And those were suggested and agreed upon. They're going to be tracked by the team at World Business Chicago. And I'll let Kyle answer
us what
those
they are.
technical
Okay.
questions.
Wonderful question. I love to get to talk about what those terms are. So for the 500 leads, keep in mind that all of these terms are over the 3-year period of this pilot partnership. The 500 leads are opportunities for Kane County to work on a project. We get a call from a Dutch manufacturer of 3D printed mannequins that wants to set up a US production facility. In the past, if that came to us, that would only stay in Chicago. So the intent now with those leads is that we will share those with Mark and Chris, with Greg and the other partners, so that that project, regardless if it comes to Chicago, comes to Chicago land.
So those will be shared among all the others.
Yep.
So it's our like less than 3% of that, because we're a small.
This is
Okay, so
every.
all of those 500 leads get shared with everyone.
Yep.
Regardless of whether it's a specific area.
If the company specifically asks for, hey, I really need to be within 25 miles of O'Hare,
Okay.
then certain partners are going to be excluded just because they do not qualify based on an operational need.
Okay.
But if there is no limitation based on operation or workforce hiring, then any lead will go out to all the partnership. And then it's up to Mark and Tony and Loretta to tell us if they have a qualifying site or the right partner for that company to work with.
Okay, so 500 leads over 3 years is to everyone,
Yep.
not just to King
Not
County.
just to King County.
Okay, that's great.
The 150 pro Chicago land decisions. Yeah, please.
So I think maybe it's just semantics, but it is 500 leads to Kane County. It's also 500 leads to DuPage, and it's 500 leads. It's potentially the same lead.
Right, but it's not specific to
It is not
us.
Kane County specific. It's
Yeah.
regionally specific.
Right, that's what I wanted to know, whether it was, yeah.
And the pro Chicago decisions that's the terminology that we developed at World Business Chicago in 2020 that recognizes a company that makes a significant expansion of their presence in Chicago at the time, or opens a new operation in Chicago. We are broadening that definition to be pro Chicago land decision. So it's any company that would have a large investment. And where we wrote that from was that the partnership would be part of those 150.
Okay.
That we're not just going to take credits for MAI Fulfillment, who made a pro Chicago decision on their own. We'll recognize that and tout that as the success and momentum of the Chicagoland to push back on those negative narratives. But these are projects that we work as a partnership to justify your trust and investment into this group.
Okay. 3 engagements per year.
3 engagements per year. So our World Business Chicago's innovation and venture team hosts a series of programs per year designed to help our innovation community, not the flower shops of the world like I come from, but those that are going to grow and have scalability and potentially become open on the NASDAQ or be acquired. We are going to host 3 engagements outside the city of Chicago per year. Historically, all our innovation team has done is host events inside the city. which is under leverage the incredible universities that exist in our region, the incredible ecosystem partners like Argonne and Fermi Labs, as well as the incredible community colleges. So now our intent is to bring those programs to help startups tap into more venture capital, private equity, and growth funds, and STEM talent or general business talent see the careers and opportunities that Chicagoland companies have, so we don't have so much of a brain drain to the West and East Coast.
Okay, so that's held outside of the Chicagoland area.
Yes.
So how are those locations chosen? Are
There
those
will-
based on the what each region offers?
Yeah, based on industry, where we think it would be the best location, based on industry, based on what the event, what we're trying to accomplish with it, and what the advisory partnership recommends to the group.
So if there's a tie between us and say DuPage, how would that get? Okay, flip a coin. Okay.
I rock, paper, scissors, maybe?
And we have the Q Center, so.
I don't know that we've kind of gotten into that level of detail in terms of, I think the group kind of feels at this point is where it makes the most sense to hold it is where it would likely be held.
Okay, I just wondered if there was going to be a set of metrics
might
that
just
maybe
do a
wasn't as
rotation.
suggested. Okay, so it's not gonna be a
No.
subjective kind of thing.
But I also want to
Okay.
point out Kyle's being very humble. As he mentioned, the partnership's been up for about a month. And while there haven't been this first of 3 events hosted outside the city of Chicago, I believe next week I will have attended my 6th event sponsored by World Business Chicago, which has DuPage County businesses attending it that I'd never attended before.
Okay,
And for the first time in the history of Choose DuPage, I learned, because of our agreement, how much private equity and venture capital money went into DuPage County businesses in 2022. Information I had never had before, which is really critical from an economic development perspective.
okay. And the 7 opportunities per year?
Yep. Those, in hindsight, that was a little bit of an undersell. Those are opportunities like us sponsoring the University of Urbana-Champaign's Ag Tech Summit and making sure that we have representatives from our regional partners invited.
Okay,
That is taking the horse to water mentality. Can't make the horse drink, but I can certainly make sure that with my actions have an opportunity for Kane, Will, and the rest of the partnership to be involved and benefit from the scalability of World Business Chicago.
okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Those actually answered like 4 other questions that I had. I have one last question that will come up that you probably won't be able to answer. That will come up when this comes back to the next month. You said our portion is 54,703, and yet you were requesting up to 100,000. Are there other things that money is being budgeted for besides our initial buy-in? Are there other costs that are related to this other than the initial buy-in that would make us ask for 40,000 more than what
So
we're
what we
anticipating?
have currently agreed to and the other partners have agreed to is those pro rata shares for those 4 projects that we've all agreed to. Part of the discussion in this 3-year term is there may be other opportunities that come
Okay.
up that we're not aware of. So there may be an additional project that the regional group says we need to do that may have additional cost associated with it. So in order for that actual additional cost, that would go through the same county board process that this first
Right.
year pro rata share allocation is going for. But we went ahead and budgeted overall for more than that so that we sort of had this vision of being able to participate if something new were to come up.
So that was our ante.
That was, yes.
Get it? Okay, got it. Thank
Sort
you.
of our budget, the actual real cost for first year for us is the 54,700. Anything additional, or if it went up in year 2, it would go through the same allocation process. I'm sorry, what? Yes.
We may want to spend, okay, that's all I wanted to know. Thank you.
I may too. I think Greg did a really good job of calling out how World Business Chicago acted in the past under previous administrations who would call on suburban companies, spike the football a little too vigorously when there was no need for it. So the conceptualization was 3 years, pushes us past whatever happens tonight or on April 4th, insulates this partnership, allows us to build trust. And while the term sheet does call out for very specific foreign direct investment goals, certain research deliverables, that was to create buy-in from the mayor's office early on. Our view at World Business Chicago is anything that moves is regional now, that we don't want this just to be a 3-year thing and then only have done the bare minimum. We want this to be so robust that you all ask us back here next year and say, why were these numbers so low? Let's do more. How do we amp this up? And then the other point with the project sponsor work is, if you recall the presentation, there's the way we have this structured is that so there could be another party, not World Business Chicago, who leads the next initiative. So if there is a case for workforce, which my money would be that's the next undertaking, that could be Kane County who delivers that for us. So it's not kind of static that everything runs to WBC. It creates an opportunity where each entity that's part of this partnership could own a piece.
Thank you. Mr. Iqbal.
Yes. Thank you, Madam Chair. My question is more generic. What is the biggest challenge for this partnership? And what I have been told is it is not businesses who wants to come in, there are plenty, but the finding qualified workers, that is the challenge. Is that true?
Greg and I will share this answer. For me, it's twofold. I think the immediate challenge is the infrastructure that supports this. Questions have been raised, like we are somewhat building this plane as it is trying to pull off from the runway. My estimation, as we were going through budget and decisions at the end of last year, was this was going to be more organic. And what's come to find out is that World Business Chicago and the partnership is being pulled into projects everywhere of a significant scale. So it's the relationships, and it's my familiarity and my team's familiarity with areas that we've never been in, elected officials like you all who we've never interacted with. So the immediate challenge is just having these relationships, having the infrastructure to provide the same level of service that we do in Chicago across this region. On a more technical level, I think it's a matter of finding the right pieces of real estate. One of the reasons why World Business Chicago was so eager to make this happen, and while the mayor, all she ever told me last summer as we were finalizing this was don't expletive this up, how she signed off every meeting. And it's because we are at a moment in our economic growth as a country of just massive investment deals, whether that's battery facilities, electric vehicle capacity, alternative protein producers, large clean energy projects. The city of Chicago doesn't have facilities that can house that, but Kane, Kendall, Will, Lake, McHenry, all of these areas do. So making sure we have a database of the qualified real estate and then activating the workforce.
Correct.
Workforce is short everywhere. Every city struggles with that. The difference is, how do we show that we have a workforce that you can tap into efficiently, that knows how to do the jobs you're asking them to do, not today, but in 5 and 10 years, because those investments are massive. So they're going to be sticky and they're going to be in our communities for a long time ahead. And so bringing the data to life, because every municipality, every economic development agency around the country knows how to put numbers on a spreadsheet. Our partnership needs to be able to show, you come to Kane County, you can tap into Waubonsie Community College and benefit from this incredible program. You come to DuPage, you can tap into College of DuPage. So those, I think, are my kind of 3 challenges I see it.
I guess I'll just be a little more direct. From an economic development perspective and business attraction and retention, labor.
Yeah.
As Kyle pointed it out, it's not unique to Kane County. It's not unique to DuPage County. It's not unique to Illinois. It's labor. For the success, or heaven forbid, failure of GSEP, in a word, politics. We have a mayoral election in the city of Chicago tonight. As Kyle pointed out, we have a 3-year agreement. DuPage County had a county board chair change in November. We have a 3-year agreement. Everybody is on board. Everybody has supported this. One thing we didn't mention that I think is going to be absolutely critical to the success of our organization is Mark and I and Kyle and your chair are working on a business representative for the advisory board for the Greater Chicagoland Economic Partnership. And one of the safeguards or guardrails that we put in place is that whoever is represented, because we've kind of envisioned 2 representatives from each jurisdiction, the economic development person or the county board chair, somebody who kind of represents the county, and then a business person. But that business person must have a significant foothold in another jurisdiction other than Kane County. They have to be in it for the good of the region, not just the good of their own individual business or the good of Kane County. And with that advisory opportunity and a 3-year term sheet agreement, we're kind of feel like we're full steam ahead. Yeah, for whatever reason, these knuckleheads associated with this organization named me the chairman of the kind of internal working group, and that is going to rotate. I'll do a 1-year term, a 1-year term or 2-year term, and then Will will have a seat, and Kane and Joliet and whatnot. But whoever is in that position within the Greater Chicagoland Economic Partnership sits on the board of World Business Chicago. So I go to every World Business Chicago board meeting where a report is provided regarding GSEP. And I know Kyle has come to a Choose DuPage board meeting and provided an update to my board on behalf of World Business Chicago. And as I like to do for him all the time, I'll speak for him and say that he'd be happy to do it for you guys as well.
Thank you, Kyle. I appreciate the volunteerism.
Just please, can we not make that public? Because my mother will get upset that I don't take the extra 20-minute drive to see her.
Yeah,
So-
I'm going to tell her right now.
Just please don't post it. Don't tag me on any social media because
Madam Chair Bates, please.
Yes, Ms. Bates.
I don't think we received the slides. Did we? Could we receive the slides from this
Could we get the
presentation?
deck? Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, Ford,
Yes, Mr. Ford.
thank you. My first question I had was answered earlier with the measurements in place, so that sounds really good. My next question, actually more of is a statement probably. We talked about what could be things that we got to work and make work against this. And the labor and politics is on the list. But I think the other thing that's on the list is infrastructure and the ability to be able to keep up infrastructure in the different areas. I think is going to be important. Along with that, what I think has been given to Kane County, one of our things that we have going for us is the fiber that we have. And right now we had a stumbling block with the state regulations on how we can use the fiber. So I think to me, that's going to bring a big important part about keeping up with the future of now let's say the area instead of just Kane County.
I know that the group has already talked about support letters on behalf of the Greater Chicagoland Economic Partnership for things like infrastructure. In DuPage, Western access to O'Hare Airport, as you can imagine, is near and dear to
Critical.
our heart. Fiber is near and dear to everyone's heart. And I think as we evolve, those are certainly issues that we can do our part to try to address from a support perspective.
We have our legislative committee that I hope will be working on that issue because it has to be brought to the state for a change.
Madam Chairman Allen,
Yes, Ms. Allen.
thank you. I'm a county board member from the city of Elgin. And I have a pretty long tenure. And I wanted to just say that any large entity, certainly government, people tend to work in silos. They just, you get so caught up in your particular area of expertise and you get, and it's hard to remember to share. And this county has been doing, I think, a spectacular job of sharing. Our silos are evaporating into a county interest in doing good for our citizens. And we do that by working together. And this is an example of getting rid of the county silos and having this regional opportunity. The thing that makes it work is when our hearts are pure. And I just want to say to Kyle and Grant and Tony from Elgin and our Aurora rep, this willingness to put our hearts into it and work together. You just are doing a wonderful job of selling this as an idea and being people who can actually make it happen. And we know we've got the people to help here too. When you talk about fiber, we can give you Roger Fonstock, for heaven's sakes. So we have lots to offer, and I'm grateful for this opportunity to bring us together and make us fly. Thank you all.
Are there any other questions?
Madam Chair Sanchez.
Yes, Mr. Sanchez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I apologize. This may have been covered already, but I know we did table the resolution on the economic partnership this morning. Will that have any impacts? I mean, do we have that long enough of a timeline, or would this create some kind of burden or time issue by delaying a month?
No, we're good for the check. At least
Okay.
I hope the board approves it so that we will be good for the check.
Excellent.
I'm
Thank
seeing
you.
a lot of head nods that saying, yeah, we're fine.
Yeah, because this is a great program. So I just want to make sure no hitches were presented. So good. Thank you.
There just simply had to have some questions answered that I was not prepared to do so. And Mark was unavailable, so I wanted to make sure that there was complete clarity. All right, anything else? Well, this has been wonderful. I look forward to getting up tomorrow at 5 o'clock. And may I suggest that next time we take a look maybe in DuPage or another location. I can get the Q Center.
Happy to have the next event out here in King County.
That would be lovely. We'd really appreciate it. Thank you. I know Mark would as well.
And just in closing, I really want to thank you, Chairwoman, for your guidance and your leadership on this. This has been a passion of mine for better part of 15 years, and getting Kyle and the elected officials from City of Chicago and all the other jurisdictions has been great. And I know Mark will do this, and I know Chris will do this. And eventually, if you create your own EDO, we're an open book in the Greater Chicagoland Economic Partnership. Critical mass is really important to us. And when you get invitations to venture summits and fintech and all these cool economic development terms that you've never heard before, please participate, because there's going to be plenty of opportunities to foster relationships with the business community from throughout the region, and that'll help. And I know Mark and his team will avail you and make you aware of those, but please join us, because we really need all of you to be a success. And thank you for getting up tomorrow morning at 5 o'clock to join us.
So when this was first presented, and Mark shared this with me and my own interest in economic development, I looked at the map and I said, we don't have an economic development council. And I said, why not? And Mark shared with me, why not? And I said, well, why can't we? And he said, well, we can. And I said, well, why don't we? And so it grew much larger and very quickly. And we're building both at the same time, both the regional, which is incredible. You outdid yourself. Thank you for that. As well as developing our own economic development council within. So I'm looking forward to having this opportunity to expand Kane County's. We are the 5th largest county economic development footprint, to bring both regional growth as well as straight economic growth within our area, and celebrating all the beauty of not only Illinois, the state that I was born in, but the 24 years that I've lived here in Kane County. So again, thank you very much for all of your hard work and your endeavors. And Mark, I'll turn this over to you. Maybe you have a closing statement.
No, just thank you for your attention. I want to thank you again for our guests. I was just amazed that the 100% response with enthusiasm to come out and have the opportunity to talk to you and answer your questions. And also just a special thank you to Kyle and his team. They have already been out to visit us here on 3 separate occasions, and as well as invite us in for opportunities. So they're not waiting for you to sign the contract. They are already moving ahead with this, and we're already reaping the benefits. So a huge thank you to them for that. And again, to Austin Edwards and the team at CMAP for really convening this over the last 2.5 years to bring this to fruition. So a lot of people to thank for this, and have a good evening. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. With that, do I have a motion to adjourn? Thank you. Second, all in favor? Aye. Okay, very good. Have a good evening all.